Our media partners at the San Francisco Standard have been following the ebbs and flows of the city's employment situation since the start of the pandemic. Today, they've published a new article about a new round of major layoffs at Twilio, a cloud communications provider based in San Francisco. 800 employees are being let go. That's about 11% of its workforce. The Standard is launching a new layoff tracker to track which companies and industries are contracting. Joining us live now to talk more about layoff trends and what we can learn from the Standards tracker is data editor Liz Lindqwister. Liz, thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
So what's the idea behind this new tracker?
Yeah, so our tracker has actually been in place since January of this year. Ever since economic conditions started to worsen across the country, we were interested in tracking layoffs, particularly in the tech industry, but now across pretty much all industries in San Francisco to see how it was impacting city residents.
All right, so let's take a look at the layoff tracker that is accompanying your story, and maybe you can walk us through some of the highlights here.
Yeah, so over the summer, there was a definite peak in layoffs across industries, but particularly in tech and information services. And just this last week, San Francisco went above 10,000 layoffs in the past year. But those numbers are starting to look better. In the last couple of weeks, there have been fewer total layoffs, so the kind of summer peak of layoffs has gone down a little bit.
All right, what we're looking at is the daily announcement from each of the companies, StubHub, looking at change.org, certainly a lot of different ones, Lyft. So the other one that I'm interested in is, I think, the weekly, right? So maybe we can pull that one. That looks like more of your traditional graph.
Yes, so that's the one that shows the weekly trends of layoffs. This past week was a little bit of an aberration because, like you said, Twilio, the cloud-based communications company, really laid off a pretty significant chunk of the workforce, 800 members.
So looking at the 10,000 that we've hit so far this year, how do those numbers compare to the recent past, maybe taking out the odd pandemic year, 2020, in terms of, you're 3/4 of the way through the year? Is this really bad at 10,000, or is that part of what's normal?
Well, so I think that the layoffs are definitely intense for the tech industry because they're so concentrated in that industry in particular. But a lot of city officials and economists that work at the San Francisco Comptroller's Office say that it's not necessarily as off base as it is in the past. They say that the labor market is still pretty strong. Unemployment rates are still pretty low. And even though these layoffs kind of reflect the tightening market and some of the economic difficulties that economists are predicting across the country in the next couple of months, they say that it's not exactly a huge cause for concern just yet.
So if this is like the kids at the playground analogy, it's not that there are no more swings for you, it's just that you have to move to a different swing? Is that what it is?
In some ways, yeah. So I think one of the interesting things is that a lot of tech workers that are laid off by particularly startups like Patreon or Twilio, companies that really expanded during the pandemic, a lot of those companies are really starting to tighten up their structure, their restructuring of responding to economic conditions. And so a lot of those tech workers are still not having a super hard time finding jobs within the tech industry. Nationally, some other news outlets have reported that job hiring across the United States and even in San Francisco has been pretty strong across industries, and particularly for information services and advanced degrees-based jobs.
I think what speaks to that point is the San Franciscans employed number, which you also provided to us, so we can go ahead and put that up and tell us what this number shows and how it compares.
Yeah, well, the unemployment rate in San Francisco has dipped below pre-pandemic levels. So I think it was a little bit above 2 or 3% in early 2020 and late 2019, but now it's below 2%. The number of San Franciscans finding new jobs is starting to increase. It's not necessarily back to pre-pandemic levels, but it's getting better. And just in July, this past month, the Comptroller's Office reported that some 7,700 jobs were added to San Francisco's economy. So it kind of indicates that as much as these layoffs are happening, the level of growth and the number of jobs being added to the market kind of outstrips the concern.
Got it. Now, many workers are now work from home or at least hybrid, so their job doesn't show up as a loss, but does the big shift to remote lead to other jobs being lost?
Yeah, so that definitely had kind of a ripple effect on particularly blue collar industries. So from the pandemic till now, San Francisco saw a loss in about 60,000 jobs, particularly in industries relating to hospitality and service and transportation. But the kinds of jobs that it gained were again in the tech and industry sector. So while we see a lot of empty offices in San Francisco's downtown areas, that's mostly going to affect the kinds of service industry workers that would be running those buildings and kind of keeping them running while tech workers kind of sit at home and do their work from home.
All right, so Liz, you guys are going to keep that tracker up there, right?
Yeah, we update it every week.
All right, really useful information. Liz Lindqwister, thank you so much for coming on to share your work there. You can also check out more of the Standard's other original reporting on their website, sfstandard.com. And ABC7 will continue to bring you more segments featuring the Standard's city-focused journalism.